Got it. Okay. And so what I'm doing on my screen is immaterial to you.
Right, because I'm recording separately on mine.
Okay. I'm actually going to pull this down. Okay. I'm ready to roll, guys. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Charged Conversations. I'm your host, Brigham McCown, where we explore cutting edge developments in energy, technology, and policy. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most talked about energy solutions of the future, hydrogen. Hydrogen's the most abundant element in the universe, and it's been used in various applications for over a century. In the 19th century, it was a key component of gas used for lighting and heating. Later, it played a crucial role in the space race, serving as rocket fuel for NASA's Apollo missions. Today, hydrogen is at the forefront of the clean energy transition, with a potential to decarbonize industries ranging from transportation to heavy manufacturing. Hydrogen is a versatile energy carrier that can be used in fuel cells to generate electricity, burned in industrial processes, or combined with carbon to produce synthetic fuels. It's already widely used in refining petroleum, producing ammonia for fertilizer, and for feedstock. Oh, let me start that again. It's already widely used in refining petroleum, producing ammonia for fertilizers, and as feedstock in chemical manufacturing. However, its potential extends far beyond these traditional roles. The key to hydrogen's future rests in how it's produced. Currently, hydrogen is categorized by color, representing the methods used in production. We'll get into talking about some of these different colors today, but first, let me introduce Mothusi Pahl, Vice President of Business Development and Government Affairs of Modern Hydrogen. Mothusi, thanks for joining us today.
Excellent, Brigham. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And I think it's fair to say that I think it's fair to say that one of the companies pushing the boundaries of hydrogen innovation is in fact Modern Hydrogen. You're focusing on decentralized hydrogen production and methane pyrolysis. We'd love to discuss this technology and see where it fits into the energy landscape, what changes remain, and how hydrogen can become a mainstream energy source. So let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about modern hydrogen? Give us a quick overview, and how does your technology differ from traditional hydrogen production methods?
Well, Brigham, there were a lot of questions in that one prompt, so I'm going to
All right.
try to take them one at a time. But the easiest way to think about this is leveraging natural gas for all of the incredibly diverse values that natural gas brings to the marketplace in the United States. So natural gas today is used for power generation. It's used for heating in buildings and heating for industrial processes. It's also used as a feedstock for chemicals manufacturing. And that those chemicals might be, you mentioned at the beginning, applications for hydrogen in refining in the oil and gas space. Well, all the hydrogen that goes into refining originates from natural gas. So the point here is that while our title is Modern Hydrogen and the technology stack that we're working on is all about economic ways to generate hydrogen, all of this maps back to natural gas and leveraging the domestic infrastructure that we have nationally that delivers natural gas to myriad applications. We're cracking that natural gas into a portfolio of new natural gas products that are high value for manufacturing, that are high value for infrastructure and for roads, and are really high value in catapulting our energy intensive economy kind of into the next generation.
Okay. How did modern hydrogen get started? Could you give us a quick overview of the company?
Absolutely. So our founders originally came together about 10 years ago, trying to figure out how to make energy cheaper and cleaner. And there have been a number of different technology iterations over the years, but the last 3 to 4 years have really been focused on creating natural gas pathways that solve problems for different use cases in commercial and industrial operations. So I've been at the company now. I'm now in my fourth year, and it's been a wild ride, as you can imagine, with kind of your visibility and experience in the technology ecosystem. Our work is new technology in infrastructure with a specific focus on making energy more economic.
Wonderful. And did I have this right? I sort of see it as your company focusing on what I'm calling decentralized hydrogen production. Is that a term that you all use or not so much?
Yeah, so I would definitely, you could call it decentralized. I usually call it distributed. The
Okay.
idea being that, we have, as a country, I mean, we have trillions of dollars of gas infrastructure assets in the ground. The faster way of saying that is we've got a lot of pipelines. And the value of those pipelines is number one, the infrastructure investment that's been made over time, both at the transmission scale and at the distribution scale, but also the fact, and this is something that your listeners, and actually most people I talk to aren't immediately aware of, is that we use more energy from natural gas than we do in the form of energy that we use in electricity. So to put it another way, natural gas is a molecule that carries potential energy for power generation that becomes electricity. It also carries a lot of energy that goes into heat. And we use more heat energy than we do electrical energy. But almost all of the heat and the majority of electricity all come from natural gas. So the infrastructure that's already in the ground that's enabling these natural gas molecules to be delivered everywhere where we need our energy, that's our force multiplier. So what we're doing in, whether you're calling it decentralized or distributed, what we're doing is creating new products from natural gas at the end of the line so that those products don't have to be retransported. In the case of hydrogen, what we're doing is working towards the space where industrial operators who are selling products to customers that want lower CO2 footprints, those customers are buying from factories and they're demanding that the factories provide a lower CO2 product. And the main way the factories can meet those objectives is either by choosing renewables, or the case that we're making is that they should continue to choose natural gas and process the natural gas to remove the carbon from the natural gas, which creates a new fuel stream that meets all of these end user demands for decarbonized products.
Well, and that leads perfectly into my next question. What the heck is methane pyrolysis?
Yeah. So I would be careful to differentiate that we're not telling your people that we're paralyzing anybody or anything. The term is pyrolysis, and the idea in
Oh, so let me stop you there. So I'm not saying it correctly. Pyrolysis.
yeah, like imagine a pie that's like rolling down a hill.
Okay.
Pyrolysis.
So let me do this. Joe's gonna fix this for us. So I'm gonna say, so Mothusi, that leads into my next question. What the heck is methane pyrolysis? And
Yeah.
how is that a part of your strategy?
Yeah. So my usual turn of phrase is natural gas pyrolysis. And in natural gas pyrolysis, what we're doing, the general idea of pyrolysis has been around for a long time. And the idea is that if you heat a molecule up in a controlled environment, you can actually control what happens as that molecule decomposes and breaks apart into the atoms that make up the molecule. So by cracking natural gas into its components, natural gas is methane. Methane is CH4, which means one carbon atom and four hydrogen atoms. If we crack natural gas into carbon and hydrogen, one of the methods to do that cracking is what's called pyrolysis. And that means we're heating up those molecules to get them to decompose into the parts that we want. So what we're doing with natural gas pyrolysis at the end of the line is taking the natural gas that comes into the pipe, we crack it into carbon and hydrogen. The carbon actually is a really high value product for asphalt manufacturing. If you're in the infrastructure and paving space, You're always looking for ways to grow your business and get cost out of your business. And the carbon that Modern produces is a really effective additive to enhance asphalt performance. So we pyrolyze natural gas to create new products for natural gas. One of those products goes as a high value additive in asphalt. The other product is clean hydrogen. So this clean hydrogen can be used for the industrial applications that you spoke of before. We also see a booming market for this decarbonized natural gas product into data centers. There are a number of very large data center developers and power supply companies for data centers that are looking to modern technology to remove carbon from natural gas before the fuel goes into the power plant for the data center.
Okay. Well, okay. That brings me to a good topic. I have a water bottle here. Is this not
Okay.
hydrogen?
There is a lot of hydrogen in that water bottle, both in the plastic, the processing of the plastic, and then in the water itself. I mean, the water is H2O, which means that it has two hydrogen atoms for every oxygen atom that is in that's in that bottle. So one way to generate hydrogen today is through a process that's called electrolysis. And electrolysis means that you're using an electrical current to crack water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. There's a lot of technology going on in the hydrogen space around electrolysis, but the challenge there is that you need electricity to drive the process. So while you may deliver hydrogen at the end of the day, and while that hydrogen may have a low maybe like effectively generated, the issue is that you're taking electrical capacity, both in terms of power generation and transmission and distribution, and you're using it to generate a product that, to be honest with you, it's not very energy efficient, knowing the constraints of our grid today. You'd be a heck of a lot. It would be way more efficient to use natural gas as the vehicle to deliver the molecule where you wanted it and cracked it that way, rather than taking really high value electrons off the electrical grid and using them to generate hydrogen. Now, there are always going to be instances where one pathway is preferred over the other, but at scale, given the objectives of our commercial and industrial customers and data center customers today, the data centers want power. So using power to create their fuel to generate power for them doesn't work. The logic isn't there, the economics aren't there, but natural gas delivering the molecules for power generation and removing carbon from those molecules to meet the data center's demand for lower CO2 power, that's mission critical, and we think that is core to domestic energy security. At the end of the day, being able to power our economy and being able to power data centers and being able to power data center demand for lower CO2 emissions per compute power delivered, there's natural gas is the pathway, and pyrolysis of natural gas helps data centers get there faster.
I love this. So just to recap for our listeners here, turquoise hydrogen is what we're talking about with modern hydrogen, right?
Yeah, so turquoise is a general term that a lot of folks in the industry use to talk about natural gas as a source for hydrogen and making sure that that carbon is captured after it's been cracked. So yes, that is one term you can use to call what we're doing.
Okay. And the important part of this is other than other processes like gray hydrogen, right, is also using natural gas, but gray hydrogen releases significant carbon dioxide emissions, whereas you're producing solid carbon, and as you've described, instead of CO2, which is then pushed into other materials like asphalt to make it stronger. And I've seen some of your videos actually of even a very famous person using your product to fix a pothole. Could you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So, and I'm glad you brought it up. So we have um, asphalt customers in on both sides of the United States. We have asphalt customers in Texas. We have asphalt customers in New York, in Florida, in Washington, Oregon, California, even up north in Alberta. And those asphalt customers buy the asphalt additive that we manufacture, that we produce by cracking natural gas. By mixing that carbon into their asphalt binder, the stuff that holds asphalt together, they make the asphalt stronger across a wider range of operating temperatures, which at the end of the day means that if you're deploying asphalt for a roads contract or a parking lot or a highway or even a runway at an airport, you can reduce the amount of maintenance that's required on the road because you're making the road stronger by mixing this performance enhancer in with the paving material. So what makes this really, really interesting is the alignment of our existing natural gas infrastructure, carrying natural gas where it's needed for commercial and industrial operations. And usually what we find is that there's a lot of road construction that happens, within 20, 40, 50, 100 miles of where these industrial operators are. So we're using existing infrastructure to bring value into every corner of the U.S. geography and economy by providing new materials that enhance paving material, asphalt construction and paving materials.
Yes, and tying on to the infrastructure, I wanted to just also highlight another piece for our listeners is you mentioned let's not use energy to make energy. This by doing it this way, you're taking advantage of a whole different set of existing infrastructure without overloading the electrical grid, which you have to do with other types of with several other types of hydrogen that use electrolysis, right? So we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket for an electric grid. B, we know how difficult it is to build out an electric grid. So is this too simplistic? But you're simply taking advantage of other infrastructure that's already existing.
You hit the nail on the head. This is dispatchable, it's reliable, it's safe, it's already been proven. Like we're leveraging the assets that are already in the ground. So you're not building new infrastructure, you're multiplying the impact and multiplying the value of the work that's already been done, the investment that's already been made. One of the things that our utility customers talk about a lot, and this was actually, there was a piece in, I believe it was the Oregonian earlier this week, comments from the organized labor community in the Pacific Northwest talking about the value of decarbonized natural gas. Get this, talking about the value of decarbonizing natural gas as a pathway to achieving their region's objectives for reducing emissions. This is organized labor saying, look, the value of our existing workers being able to do what they know best in getting natural gas to market, and now the multiplier effect of removing carbon from natural gas will help those regions get to their decarbonization objectives faster than renewables. That's incredible if you think about it, that natural gas as a pathway to help end users that are trying to decarbonize, that they can decarbonize faster with natural gas than with renewables. If you want to talk about like a 1-2 punch or a value multiplier, both for a community that's concerned with the environment and the force multiplier of a community that's aggressively trying to grow markets for natural gas, if you can do both of those at the same time, everybody wins.
Well, and the United States currently produces more natural gas than it uses, right?
Yep.
We export, so we are 100% energy independent when it comes to the use of natural gas. And some people think we're totally energy independent, but that's actually not true because we consume more petroleum oil base than we still make, but not so in natural gas. But how do you address critics who argue that uh, hydrogen being produced from natural gas still relies on fossil fuels? And is this technology really as clean as advertised?
That is a good question. And at the end of the day, responsible production of natural gas is important. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in the United States who's pro wasting energy, right? There's the pollution
Okay.
element, there's the economic element. So responsible production of natural gas is something that I can personally go out on a limb on and say is near and dear to my heart and is something we as an energy industry need to seriously advocate for. Similarly, reducing leaks in our natural gas network from the point of production all the way to the point of utilization. There are lots of industry initiatives, especially on the utility side, on what they call tightening their networks. So historically, where a lot of leaks would have happened, where flanges meet, where bolts need to be tightened, I would shine a light specifically on utilities like Puget Sound Energy in Washington and Northwest Natural in Oregon. They're all both strategic partners and clients of Modern. Those two lead the pipeline ecosystem in tightness of their networks, which mean they are addressing exactly the problem that you're talking about, which is making sure that the natural gas that's delivered is as clean as possible, that you're not wasting it. In our case, the problem that we're trying to solve for is enabling for the commercial industrial operators that are trying to make progress on their own internal decarbonization objectives, that we're reducing the CO2 emissions associated with the natural gas that they're burning. They know today that they want to reduce their emissions. That's number one. They know today that they don't want to electrify their process because electrifying their business is too expensive. They can't afford the capital cost of overhauling all of their equipment. So they want to decarbonize, they want to stick with natural gas, but they don't know how to do both. And what we bring to the table is a solution where they can do both. And incrementally, they can economically deploy this distributed natural gas pyrolysis technology to remove carbon. The carbon goes into asphalt products that make the infrastructure community really happy. And the decarbonized distributed natural gas pyrolysis that goes into these industrial operations help these operators meet their internal decarbonization objectives.
So this really sounds like a win-win goal. And one of the things I've always concentrated on is if you're interested in decarbonization, then we should be somewhat agnostic as to the way it's done. We're outcome based, right? We're about results, being driven by results, and the result is you are reducing carbon footprint substantially.
Absolutely. The other benefit here is economically, you're making energy cheaper within the marketplace. And I say you're making energy cheaper because our focus on commercial and industrial operations means that we are helping those big energy consumers meet their demand requirements without building new electrical infrastructure. So at the end of the day, thinking about this objectively and outcomes oriented, exactly to your point, if you want to decarbonize, then you should have options for how to get there. And ultimately, what we see is that people are choosing distributed natural gas pyrolysis as the pathway to get to decarbonization. One, because they're using natural gas. Natural gas is domestically sourced. So if we're talking about national security, if you're talking about equipment that is manufactured in the US, I mean, this is not a solar panel that came from China or a wind turbine that came from Europe. This is talking about domestic natural gas, domestic technology, domestic manufacture that's being deployed to achieve domestic decarbonization objectives on the part of corporations that are trying to figure out how do they make progress, how do they grow their markets, how do they reduce their cost, and this is another way. This is another way that we're helping them win.
All right, so it's a plus for the environment. It's a plus to actually make the other products like asphalt better, hardening the asphalt makes it last longer, fewer repairs, right? Less potholes. It enhances our economic security, our national security. What am I missing here?
You know, we are in we're in a great position today where it's a great feeling to be in alignment with the Trump administration today. We are growing markets for natural gas, and we're creating new natural gas demand by creating new products from natural gas that are all made in America for American businesses. And at the same time, we're helping data centers that are trying to advance a decarbonization agenda. We're helping them meet that. And other commercial or industrial operators that are trying to meet their own decarbonization objectives for their own customers, we're helping them meet that too. So to your point about alignment, and I think to the overarching objective of domestic energy security, this idea of creating a new market for natural gas in the decarbonization ecosystem, regardless of where you stand politically on decarbonization, the idea that you can create new products from natural gas, really objectively, you shouldn't care who's buying it, right? If somebody's buying it for their decarbonization objective, then we should be behind that full throttle.
Well, this is wonderful. I've really appreciated this last half hour with you and talking through this. Thank you so much for joining us. And, I've been having a conversation with Mothusi Pahl, Vice President of, I'm going to get this wrong again, Business Development and Government Affairs at Modern Hydrogen.
You were doing such a good job. I was going to make you a job offer, but now that you can't get my title right, we're going to have to go back.
I know. I'm going to re-say that real quickly with Joe here. I've really enjoyed this last half hour discussing this with you. And on this episode of Charged Conversations, I've been speaking with Mothusi Pahl, Vice President of Business Development and Government Affairs at Modern Hydrogen. I'm your host, Brigham McCown. This is a Joe Strecker production. We'll see you next time.